The day has finally come. Today, we're going to set up the Atmos rig. I'm so pumped to get started on this. So in this video, we're going to be setting everything up, building the components necessary, installing all of the mounts and everything to hang the height speakers. We're going to be talking about like routing, cabling, just getting the system from not even in the room to functional. We can listen to music on. That's what this video is about. I'm going to show you absolutely everything. This has been such a long time coming, and I really can't tell you how excited I am to have this in and start working in the format full time. So first up, we got to build a bunch of speaker stands. We got to unbox a whole bunch of speakers, and we got to solder a whole bunch of cables. Let's get into it. Okay, so this is what the finished mount looks like. So this is the isoacoustics mount. What is the number on this? The
V120.
The V120.
Yep.
And so the isolation, correct me if I'm wrong, comes from right here, right?
Correct.
So this right here is going to be what is hanging from the ceiling, and then all your isolation comes from these things right here, and then this swivels, so that way you can adjust your angle.
Yeah, I've tightened it down.
You've tightened it down. And then can you just hold that up like how it would?
So it will hang from the ceiling like so.
Yep.
Essentially on the center of the speaker. So.
And then that's how it will hang.
Yep.
Up
and it
top.
will hang facing down. Down the downward facing angle with that bracket on the back. In your case, sometimes this uses a flange, so it comes with a flange like this.
And if you wanted to, you could mount those. Like you could just mount that flange right to the ceiling if you're in a situation.
Yeah, if you don't have a huge wide cloud like you do, and you have access to that up there, or you have a smaller space, you can just, that flange threads on there, and it's nice and easy. In this case, we're going to use a dual female coupling nut on the back of this thing.
Yeah.
And then we're actually going to run it to the ceiling and use Unistrut, which essentially has these little clips inside that allow you to slide it along the entire channel.
Yep.
If you're ever doing an Atmos rig and you have the option of doing that, I really recommend it, because not only does it keep your room square, because essentially your height speakers are always a square.
Yep.
A perfect square around the listener. So it allows you to keep the rig perfectly square, but it also like gives you more security when you're talking about hanging, opposed to like sinking 4 screws into your ceiling and hopefully hit a stud.
Yeah.
It allows you to brace that weight across multiple studs.
Totally.
So it's just safer when you're hanging stuff that's super heavy over people's heads. You want to be
you want to be careful with
as
that.
safe as possible.
Because that's and we used red Loctite on these.
Yep.
And everything will be Loctited in. So
Yep, just all the things you do to make it a little safer.
yeah, you don't want a 40-pound dumbbell hitting somebody in the head.
Yeah.
Also because of vibration. These are vibrating.
Yeah, it's a system, and that helps. The isolator decouples that, which is cool, and that's the primary benefit of using the V120 system. But yeah, it's energy,
Yep.
So Better safe than sorry.
Killer.
So.
Okay, so we got all of the speakers, minus the center channel, that's not up yet. We got all of the speakers in the location. Got the mount, a mount put together. I can't talk this morning. I haven't had my caffeine yet. Got the mount put together for one of the height speakers. I've got some uni-strut downstairs, and that's going to be what we use to mount these to the ceiling. It's like I'll show you. And then I need to go, today's going to be a little bit of a wild goose hunt. What's the expression? Whatever. Anyway, today I'm going to go to Nashville, into town, and like try to find a couple things. So what I need is an M10 threaded rod, a handful of them. I need an M10 coupling nut, and then I also need like some Loctite. I also need these special nylon cone nuts for the uni-strut. So anyway, I just have a feeling this is going to be one of those days where I've got to go to 8 different places, 10 different places to find all of this. I tried finding stuff online. We're just gonna go into town and get after it. Here we go. First stop, Grainger. Okay, so I wondered if I would have to order some of this because no matter where I looked online, I could not find any place that had metric threaded rod and the coupling nuts in stock. And they didn't have it here either at Grainger, unfortunately. But Grainger is like a really good resource to get a bunch of odd, like anything mechanical, anything industrial. So they ordered me the threaded rod and the coupling nuts. They did not even have the option to order the cone nuts, the nuts that slide in the channel. They didn't even have the option to order those in metric. So now I gotta figure out, I gotta look and see if there's anywhere else in town I can try for that, or if I need to just order those online. Then we gotta go to some sort of hardware store. I need thread locker and a couple other stuff. So this is about how I thought this would go. Okay, so I did not keep filming when I was running around town trying to find these parts because it was getting really frustrating. I ended up going to like 4 places. Half of them didn't even know what I was looking for, even though these are common industrial construction materials. So it just got really frustrating really fast, and I was like, I'm not going to keep showing this. So I have 2 10-foot pieces of uni-strut, which this right here is uni-strut. And so it looks like that on the end. And basically what happens, so you mount this channel, 10-foot pieces of this. I'm going to explain this here because it's going to be really hard to show this while we're actually doing it. This 10-foot piece is going to get mounted directly to the ceiling. With anchors going right into the studs. And then these are the spring nuts that I was looking for, running all over town looking for. And the problem with these is I couldn't find them in metric because uni-strut and spring nuts, you can go buy these at Lowe's and Home Depot. They are commonly used to hang sprinklers and to hang electrical conduit of any kind in commercial spaces. So this is like a super common building material, but they're all standard. So I could not find these in metric anywhere. I ended up jumping on Amazon, and I found some M10, because that's what this is. This is an M10 1.5 millimeter thread pitch. So M10 is the diameter of this, and 1.5 is the thread pitch. And I found some of these on Amazon that were M10, but they were not listed. The thread pitch was not listed. And it was kind of the only metric ones I could find, period. So I just went ahead and took a chance and ordered these, and thank God they are the right ones. So basically what happens is you have these spring nuts, and it's kind of hard to show this until it's up there, but basically this spring goes in here, and let me see if I can just put it together real quick for you in a way that won't flop apart without it being mounted. There we go. Okay, so then when it's all put together, it looks like that. So that nut sits in there, and you can see how it rides on these little grooves right here. And then in the bottom, then you get a threaded hole with which to bolt stuff in. So this is what's going in the ceiling, and these you can slide around so that way you can set your positioning exactly where you want of the speakers. And then I had to order this threaded rod. So this is M10 1.5 threaded rod, and I got this from Grainger. I had to order it from them. They did not have this in stock, but I was able to order this, so fine. So I ordered that. I've got I've got 4 1-meter long pieces. So there will be a speaker hanging from one of each of these. I still have to paint these. I'm painting everything black. And then the next thing that I had to get was what is called a coupling nut, which is this guy right here. So basically, this is just a super long nut. And what's going to happen is I will paint these threaded rods black, and then all of this is going to be painted black. This will get mounted to the ceiling. One of the threaded rods will go into here and get Loctited. We'll use red Loctite for that. And then the other end of this threaded rod will get a coupling nut that goes right on the mount here. And this is how the speakers are gonna hang. Everything will get Loctited together. We gotta be super safe about this because, you know, you're hanging like heavy weights over someone's head. Now these mounts, once we hang them, you will literally just find the balance point and they will hang there perfectly balanced. Which is part of the reason why I wanted these isoacoustics mounts, because it will absorb all of the vibration. Whatever vibration comes from the cabinet should get absorbed and not transfer up these threaded rods or into the ceiling at all. And I personally think that's probably a pretty good idea. So we got to go paint all this black because I want it to look nice. So that is how the speakers are actually getting mounted. Hopefully that made sense, because this is probably all going to be time lapse because it's going to be a big pain in the butt. Oh, and then we will for the front speakers, we're just drilling holes through the ceiling cloud, or a hole that the threaded rod will hang down through. So that way, that's the best way we can come up with how to do this without it being too intrusive and without putting any weight on the ceiling cloud. So that's how we're doing it. Let's go paint these. We've got these holes drilled in the cloud, and it's really dark because we have the laser going, as you can see. And so we've literally just drilled holes in the cloud, and then we've mounted the struts up there, right along there, and that's what's hanging. That's what we're hanging these threaded rods from. So we're making progress. Okay, so we got the first speaker hung, and we have a little bit of an issue. It hung fine, and the mounts worked okay, but it is at, let's see if I can do this. It is at too steep of an angle. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to shim some stuff up to point it more, because it's pointing like here instead of at the mix position. So what we gotta do is if we shim up this mount, so there's the mount that hooks to the speaker, and then this swivel goes to that mount. So we think we stack some washers in here to basically increase this level, this angle, then it should work. That was a pretty frustrating day trying to mount these height speakers up here. 3 trips to the hardware store. Still didn't get it done. Basically, we ran out of time yesterday. I'm trying to fit all of this in Josh's schedule, which Josh has been gracious enough to help me with this, and he's going way above and beyond. So I'm trying to respect his time as much as I can. So today, what I'm going to attempt to do is we've got to run wires from the monitors, so from the output of the interface here, up to the front wall, and then unfortunately I'm going to pop this seam of fabric and the wires are going to run like this up above the ceiling cloud. So I've got to run 4 XLRs and 1 power cable, and then I've got to mount a junction box up above there to split out into 4 power cables to power each of the 4 height speakers. And all of these have to be custom made because they're all custom lengths. That's the goal today. Going to measure this out and figure out like how long these need to be, and then start soldering up mic cables and power. And yep, here we go. Okay, that took absolutely forever, but I have custom length mic cables, XLR cables for every single speaker, because with this much cabling going on, it would start to get real messy if there was a bunch of extra lengths. So made custom cables for every single speaker so that way they are all exactly the length that they need to be. Here's a fun fact for you. Pardon the mess. So I started off with this 500-foot spool, you might say, of XLR cable. And it wasn't even enough to run to every single speaker. So there is approximately 530 or 540 foot of XLR cable just to connect from the interface to all of the speakers, which is crazy. Now I have went through and set up XLR cables up here, and I have labeled every single cable. Can we focus here? I have labeled every single cable here, so that way there's never going to be any confusion as to what cable is coming from what, because they're all going to the interface on the back side of there. Okay, so the next thing I'm doing is I'm going to attempt to make a custom power harness, so custom wiring harness for these speakers, partially because of the flow of the room. I want there to be no cables right here whatsoever. And so that means the power from this side, from that wide, and from these all needs to run this way. But it also means that this rear speaker can connect directly to the rack, but this rear speaker, this side speaker, this wide speaker, the power from that all needs to come from the same place. And so what I'm going to attempt to do is make a wiring harness. So you can see my chicken scratch here. I have just cut up some cables, and I have used my voltmeter to figure out which one of these is correct. And so that way I can wire up custom power cables. And my thought is to have the power cable connected on the back here to run down these Argosy stands, which there's a whole channel in here that actually hides the cable, so that's cool. And then at the bottom, the plan is to cut this off and then solder this to power cable, because if I just used extension cords everywhere, it would be such a train wreck because there's only like 4 lengths of extension cords that you can buy. So my thought is to run one power cable around these. I mean, it'll end up being like 3 power cables, but run just a couple power cables around, and then at the bottom of each speaker stand, tap into it. That's the plan. I'm starting to run out of time here. I'm trying to be so respectful of Josh's time coming in and helping me do all this, and he's getting ready to be on the road for a while. So this kind of needs done today. And then also once the power harness is done, then I've got to take this fabric off, rip this seam, this seam, this seam, this seam, and then I don't think I'll even be able to show you guys this. And then we're gonna run power up here, and I'm gonna put a junction box up there, a metal junction box with a lid, and then hardwire in power that will go to each of the height speakers. And I'm just right now realizing I definitely don't have enough power cable to do all that. So back to Lowe's we go, but that's the plan. So we'll see if I can get it done today. Okay, so here's what I've come up with. We've got 2 wires coming in this side. Here is my joint. So we've got some butt splices here. I've soldered the tips so that way they just won't splice and come out, or like cut and shear and come out nearly as easy. Got some shrink tubing here to cover up the ends because there's a little bit of copper sticking out when I put 2 of these into the butt splice. And then the idea is we just hopefully pull this right over, right over the whole thing. There we go. And then we'll shrink that up, and then we will do this for every single speaker. So that way this will continue on to the next speaker. And then when we get to the next speaker, we'll splice it up and drop a power cable in, and that's what we're going for. Also, yes, I know, I should get a heat gun. I have one somewhere. I don't know where it is. This works just as good. Sue me. Got quite the mess going on. Got the third sound anchor stand up here. These are just great stands. So these are by Sound Anchors. I've had the other 2 for a while now, and they're just really heavy duty, like the sturdiest thing you can possibly imagine. And in our tests in the speaker stand video, they outperformed the other options by a significant margin. So got that put in there. I've got the wires. Here's how the wires are running. Let's see. So I've just got a little slit cut right there in the track, and they are just cut some of the insulation out, and they are just running up and up there and up there, and then I've got to run them up there and then tuck the fabric back in. And then I got to mount a junction box up there and string everything back. So that's what's next. Not much to see because unfortunately you can't really see above the cloud. Okay, this is, we're above the ceiling cloud right now. And I'm trying to get this set up so you guys can watch this. That's not gonna work at all. Ugh. So basically what's happening, oh, there's a decent angle. Okay, so basically what's happening is I can't even move my head. This is the soffit right here, and the edge of the ceiling cloud is here, and I'm stuck between it. We've got cables coming up and out the top of the soffit, which I still need to tuck some fabric in right here behind my head, but we're gonna deal with that when this is done. We've got power running into this, there goes the camera. We've got, so we've got power coming into the junction box right here. And basically we're gonna connect all the power cables. All the power cables for all the height speakers are coming into here. I didn't film running the wires up here because there wasn't anything to see really, because this is as much as you can see above the cloud. So I'm gonna splice all these together in this box, and there will be a metal cover that goes over it, so that way all the power connections are secured. Every power connection is soldered, except for the ones in this box. They're all soldered, and they all have shrink wrap on them, so just as good as the cables were to begin with, except in this box I've got quick connects for this. Let's see, they are right here. And so these are just push in to connect. So all those connections will be in this box with a metal lid on it. That is up to code. I think that's it. So yeah, let's wire up some cables. Okay, so we're getting ready to hang the height speakers. All the wires are run. Here is my solution. I gotta figure out a little bit better way to handle that fabric, but the junction box is up there for the power. And then here is the spacer solution that we came up with. So basically we needed that. We needed more angle out of these mounts. So we just stacked some washers in there. That ought to do it. This is what's going, can we focus here? Can we focus? Come on, camera, there we go. This is what's going in the unistrut up top, so that way the speakers will be hanging from these, but this isn't real pretty looking. So I took some PVC pipe here and cut it to length and painted it black so it looks like a nice big pole in my hand. to hide all the wires and just make the mounting system look beefier and more stout. And so this also hides the wires, so the wires go through this, but I have to notch out the end of this for the wires to go through. So, and then I will hand Josh the pole that is in my hand. The pipe that is in my hand. No comment. Okay, so this is the situation for the surround sounds. These surround speakers. What am I even doing? For those that don't know, this is my fourth time trying to film this exact shot. It's been brutal. Anyway, I was dropped as a young child. These are the Argosy stands, and they look really good in my opinion. And the reason why I went with these is because they have the isoacoustics built right into them, as do the mounts on the height speakers. Those are isoacoustics mounts, so we've got isolation built into those, as do all of the front speakers, which have isoacoustics pucks under them. So every single speaker in this whole studio is isolated. But one of the coolest features about these speaker stands is that they have a way to hide all of your cables. So they tuck right back in a slot here, and then they've got a little piece of trim, and that runs all the way down. So that way your speaker or your power and your mic cables, your XLR cables, are completely hidden. And that makes them look really clean. All right, so this is impossible. Oh, you're good. This is impossible to show everything on camera in one shot, but every speaker is up and the heights are all mounted. We think we need to move them forward just a couple inches to get them correct, but mounting turned out great. I can't even, like, you can't see anything. It looks awesome, and on the fronts especially, you really can't see anything. Okay, so tell me what you were just telling me about the distance.
No, I think when we're doing Atmos rooms, like the room constraint, especially on the height, is always like a big problem. Because you usually either have like too low, your ceiling's usually too low. Mm-hmm. Like let's say you have an 8 or 9 foot ceiling. Say it's 9 feet. That's pretty typical. 9 feet, and then you have the height of the speaker itself, and then you have the mount. So you end up dropping the speaker anywhere from 6 to like 12 inches in some cases, and then the speaker, it feels like it's really on top of you. But then in the opposite situation, let's say you have a big, purpose-built control room where the ceilings are massive. You've got like 14 feet high. Mm-hmm. In those cases, you try to put a small speaker on the ceiling like this that's not intended to throw that information that far. Because most studio monitors designed so like we have a maximum sweet spot. Everybody wants a really massive sweet spot in the stereo field, obviously. But when you start putting things on the ceiling and you back them that far away, you end up having some problems. And this is like a really, really solid, like if I was building a purpose-built room for myself, this is probably where I would want a Solo 6 to be approximately. I think the tweeter's 9.5 feet, maybe 10 feet.
Yep.
And
that's basically because like these speakers are kind of meant to be like near fields, right? They're meant to be only 4 or 5 feet away from you. And
every monitor is, and that's the thing that people I think really should keep in mind if you're considering going down this path, and you have a big room. Like the further the speaker is from you, the bigger the box you need to get, right? So if you're gonna be 9 or 10 feet away, now you're hanging a really heavy box off the ceiling.
Yeah, right? And those are not easy to hang.
Yeah, no, I mean, we don't even make a hanging. If you want to hang those, you're kind of on your own. We make a bracket. We have a bracket for the Trio 6. Mm-hmm. Actually, ISO Acoustics makes for us. It's like a cage that goes around the Trio 6. Mm. But like, how many people's ceilings were built to manage that kind of weight across it?
100%.
If the room was purpose-built for stereo in the first place, and you have isolation in that space, the moment you compromise the drywall, now you have leakage. Yep. There's a whole swath of issues that can happen, but this is pretty ideal. I think this is going to turn out really, really great.
Amazing.
We got to tweak some things, but
we got to tweak some things.
We're working from a really, really good point, so I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. It just feels good to have them all up on the ceiling. Yeah. Finally.
And it looks good.
It does look.
I was kind of skeptical about the PVC thing, but it actually looks really clean.
Sweet.
And the cables are super tidy. I know that's stupid, but
no, the cables being tidy.
The fact you're not seeing cables strung across everywhere.
Nope.
They're just nice, and
if you look in the right spots, you can see them. I mean, I've got to do some work to hide that up there.
That's it.
But
that's clean.
No one's gonna walk over here anyway. So, all right, I guess let's get those moved and get them in the right spot. Listen to some music.
What time is it?
2 o'clock.
We might get some output by the end of the day here.
All right, so we're going back on with the laser on this nifty contraption that I've now showed in way too many videos to cover it again.
You've single-handedly driven up the
And then what we're basically going to do is this is helping us measure the angle to make sure the angle is proper and distance. So that way we can make sure all of these speakers are the right distance away from the listening position. Explain to me what you're doing here, if you could.
Yeah, so we have all of our speakers set up. We roughed them out before. And when I say roughed them out, it's probably more accurate than most. Before we go through with calculating our exact delay times for every speaker, I like to document every single room I do, both with the physical distance to the speaker, but also the measured delay, the difference in delays, the SPL level, so C-weighted slow, and then the delta below those, just in an Excel sheet. So in the event that the profile's corrupted or somebody loses a backup or something, we can at least have a physical document.
Like a baseline of how to
document of what everything is, and then at the end of a tune, I'll send this to you as well as copies of all the profiles for safekeeping. I put one on Dropbox, got with someone drives, and
nice.
That way it's always backed up. So we're just going to document all of our exact distances first. Then we'll measure our delays. Then we'll detect the difference in the delay time. We'll sync up all the speakers, and then you'll have something. As long as we level out our output, which should all be pretty close because they're almost equidistant. So we should be able to get. I think it's 3 o'clock. We should be rocking by 6. So yeah.
Nice.
We do everything right.
Yeah, well, so far.
Yeah, there's lots, a few more trips to the hardware store for sure.
Yeah, even though everything is hung and installed, surely we have to go to the hardware store one more time. Can you say that again?
We're not going to have to do a lot of EQ, I don't think.
And why is that?
So anytime you set up a rig, like one of the first things I've done once I've got like all my I/O checked and everything sorted out in terms of level, making sure all the input sensitivities and everything are in the same place, I like quickly rotate pink noise around the room from speaker to speaker to speaker.
Coming out only one speaker at a time.
Just one speaker at a time. It kind of helps you check, like, okay, it says it's left here, it's left here. Okay, we have parity between all our outputs in Pro Tools or all our outputs in the render, as well as OS stuff. And the first thing I do is just generate pink noise, but I'm also like paying attention to the tonality of the speaker specifically. And as acoustically, like as you move stuff around, the speaker changes dramatically, even if it's the same speaker. In a lot of cases, it'll change dramatically. Here we are, with the exception of the top 2 height speakers.
The rear height speakers.
The rear height speakers, which have more low end because you don't have the cloud up there and you've got that that void. But they all sound very, very similar, which means that's less EQ we have to do to manage those things and make them feel the same. And in my world, the less EQ you have to do, unless you want the curve, which is a great QC measure, but less EQ you have to do, the better.
Yeah.
So, and ideally, you have no EQ. And here we don't have all the height channel or the surround channels are exactly the same distance down to 1/100th of a foot.
Yeah.
And then the heights are a little bit longer, but it's super great starting point. So
we just played some Mike Miller mixes and it sounded pretty awesome.
Yeah, very, very tight.
With nothing done, no tuning whatsoever.
Try not to get too excited. I'm trying not to get too excited because I'm already like, okay, cool.
Oh, cool. We're done.
No, I'm not done. Definitely not done.
All right, that's it. That is the full install of a 9.1.4 system. It's interesting because today I got a notification on my Facebook memories that it has been 1 year since I emptied this room to start this changeover. 1 year is an insane amount of time to be working on something. Obviously, just installing Atmos took a handful of days, but the construction, which I started to prepare for this, is that's pretty crazy. Now, we've had a quick first listen just to kind of hear some music, and it is pretty incredible. We have to do bass management. So the next video will be all about the tuning of everything. And I want to walk you through all the gear real quick. Before I do that, there are links down below for every piece of gear that I'm about to show you. And those links go to Sweetwater. Sweetwater's sponsoring this video. So anytime you guys need any piece of musical gear whatsoever, you can jump on any one of my videos, click on any one of the links in the description below. Once you're on the site, you can purchase anything that you need that you were going to buy anyway, and it costs you nothing extra, but doing so helps support me and helps me keep making content just like this. So thanks Sweetwater for sponsoring this video, and thanks to you guys for using those links anytime you need to purchase anything. Let's get to looking at the gear. Okay, first up, these are the Sound Anchor ADJ44 stands, and they are shockingly heavy duty. I cannot recommend them enough. If you haven't seen my speaker stand video, go check it out. But these are unreal. And then they are topped with the Isoacoustics pucks, which, again, watch the speaker stand video. Yes, they make a huge difference. Yes, we measured it. And yes, I can hear it. Next up, we have 3 Focal Trio 11s for left, center, and right. And I've been mixing on these for a long time, and it just makes sense to have a third speaker for the center channel. That's the same as the left and right when you're mixing Atmos. This may get modified. I may play around with some sort of like raising screen or something like that, because I don't particularly love this, but it just is what it is for right now. Now, every other speaker is a Focal Solo 6. And I picked these because, one, the personality of them plays nice with the trios. They have a very similar personality, but they are significantly more affordable than the trios. Like, obviously, who can afford to put those everywhere? So we've got the wides and the sides and the rears, and the rear height and the front height. Now, Sweetwater had basically this exact rig in their Studio C, and it sounded absolutely unreal. And so that was really like, I spent a lot of time in Studio C listening, a lot of time in there like testing, and that was really what helped me decide to go this route, because obviously it's a pretty significant investment. Next up, we have the Focal Sub 12s. We've got a stereo pair, which I went over in a previous video because of the room tuning and because of the quarter wavelength. Go watch all my videos. This is going to be a whole series of videos on how I built this, why we did this, speaker positioning, etc. And also, I need to give a huge shout out to Gavin Haverstick, because these are all his speaker locations. When he drew up the plans for the whole construction for everything that we did, he also gave us exact speaker locations for everything. So even though we haven't talked much about Gavin in this video, like, huge shout out to Gavin, because it is shocking how good this plan was. It's shocking how good the locations worked out. It's shocking how good it sounds in stereo here, which means I can't wait to get this room all tuned up and ready to go. Next up, these Argosy speaker stands that are just, they look classy. They hide the cables nice and neat, and they have the isoacoustics built right into them, which is the main reason why I chose them. So awesome. Now, if any of you guys have a suggestion for this, I mean, I haven't cleaned these up yet. I will at least zip tie them all together in a nice clean bundle. But if anyone has a suggestion for what's the best way to like wrap these into a single bundle, or just give me any cable suggestion you got in the comments below, because I do want to figure something out, whether it's a mesh tube or some sort of wrapping or something. I want to get that all bundled together and nice looking. but I need to explore some options first. Now on the height speakers, we are using the ISO acoustics mounts, and that's what they look like when they're hung. And man, that's just so clean. It's so clean looking. Like, you can barely see any cables. The cables are stuffed down inside that tube, and they're hung on this strut with a threaded rod. I mean, I showed you guys all that, but that's so clean. That is so clean. And drilling the hole up there and just popping them down through the ceiling cloud, that worked wonders. Now all of the cables are coming back here into these snakes that I have that I still need to hide. And those are all going into the Avid Matrix Studio. So this is what we're doing all of the room tuning with, all of, you know, separating all the speakers, all the Atmos stuff, and all the EQ. This is all going into, or coming out of, this interface. Now this Avid Matrix Studio is connected to the Mac Studio under there via Thunderbolt and HDX at the same time. So there's an HDX card back there, and it's connected to both at the same time. I probably do need to make a whole video on why that's cool, but that is the whole deal. And then this interface here, the Avid HDIO, this is for all of my hardware inserts, so that way when I'm mixing with hardware, that runs all of that. But all of my monitoring, all of the room tuning, all of the calibration, all the different profiles, all of that's coming from the Matrix Studio. One of the things that I have yet to figure out is monitor control. So I don't have a monitor controller here yet. Currently, I'm just using my mouse in the Dadman software. So some sort of monitor controller needs to go right here. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, if I'm going to do some sort of Avid interface, if I'm going to do a Dad Mom, if I'm going to do a Stream Deck, but right here, there's going to eventually be something, and I need to figure out what that is. So that's the rig. It's installed. The install is done, which is just, it's crazy to say out loud because I started planning this in February 2023, and it is middle of August 2024. Now things could have went much faster if it wasn't for construction, if it wasn't for other life things that I had going on, but I'm so pumped that it's in now. Next up, time to tune this room, and I'm gonna do a whole video on the tuning, exactly how we do it, so that way, hopefully, what I wanna do here is create kind of a step-by-step, so that way, at least if you have no idea what this is about, you can kind of figure it out on your own, hopefully. But next up is tuning. So Josh should be here any minute, and time to tune this and really start cranking some tunes out. I'm so pumped to work. I'm so pumped to just work and mix music. It's gonna be awesome. Don't forget links down below. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for following along on this journey. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.